Welcome back to the Ben Shapiro Show. I am Michael Knowles filling in. What a privilege to be filling in today. What a delectable, tasty, delicious day to be filling in. If you haven't heard the news yet, Andrew Cuomo has resigned in New York. Welcome back to the Ben Shapiro Show on this glorious day. I'm Michael Knowles. I'm the host of the Michael Knowles Show podcast. You can subscribe, get that wherever you like. I am a native New Yorker, so I take special delight in the announcement that Governor Andrew Cuomo has resigned. I have met Andrew Cuomo on a couple of occasions. I was his waiter once when I was in high school. I literally ran into him during Hurricane Sandy. That was kind of funny. Can't say I love the guy. Really, a really terrible governor. When he was being celebrated all during COVID, I wanted to pull my hair out. He was doing a terrible job. Anyone with 2 brain cells knew he was doing a terrible job, and yet he was winning Emmys. He was getting plaudits all over the place. There were very few people who had this guy's number. One of the people who had his number is my good friend of many years, New York State Assemblyman Kevin Byrne. Kevin joins us now to give us the play-by-play. Kevin, congratulations. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm glad that we actually got some good news to celebrate here in New York.
Kevin, I don't want to tell too many tales out of school. I don't want to pull the curtain back too much. I was in France last week. I was there for a friend's wedding, so I was out of the news. I was not doing my daily show, and I was getting kind of spotty cell phone service, but I did see a text come in from you. And the text said, I'm going to clean it up a little bit. He said, we've got this guy. Maybe the language was a little more colorful, but, we've got this guy. And I thought, Kevin, you've been so dogged about this. You've been pursuing booting Cuomo for years now. And I don't want to say that I didn't have hope or faith here, but I was more skeptical. And you, my friend, were right.
Why, thank you. You can say you were wrong too, but no, I'm just kidding. No, it's but you were right to be skeptical, Michael. Anyone that's lived in New York for an extended period of time knows that this governor has gotten away with so much. He was a Teflon. Joe Percoco went down. This man dismantled his own Moreland Commission. We had the nursing home scandal. He profited from a $5.1 million book deal, primarily from suppressing COVID-19 mortality data. Got an Emmy. I mean, one of the craziest things in reports about the sexual harassment investigation from the AG, somewhere I heard the governor commented on the Emmys buxom. I don't even know what that word meant. I had to look it up. So, I mean, this is crazy. He had his vaccine czar, Larry Schwartz, going around calling county executives, testing their political loyalty. This is a bad governor that's gotten away with corruption for far too long, and people were right to be pessimistic. People were right to quite frankly be concerned. But to all those naysayers that told me, Kevin, nothing's ever going to happen, we're wasting our time, I'm so glad I didn't listen to you.
Right, of course. I mean, you were so dogged, you were quite confident that you could get him. I thought, and I want to get to those other scandals in just a second, because frankly, I think that's where the focus should be, and the fact that they got him on a sex scandal with his secretary or whatever is, in a way, almost a disappointment, but frankly, anything that gets him out is fine by me. But for those who have not been following it closely, those who do not live in New York, who have not followed Cuomo's career, can you just lay out very briefly what exactly happened here? All I remember from last year is there was the nursing home scandal, then it was a sex scandal, then there was this New York State Attorney General investigation, and now all of a sudden he's resigning.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk for hours about all the different scandals, and I'll try to do it briefly, chronologically. Just starting with COVID, right? Because if we go before that, right, there's scandals there too. But just starting with COVID, it was the March 25th directive that was from the Department of Health that essentially put in a must-admit order for nursing homes to accept COVID positive patients, which we know which was a mistake. If that was not bad enough, there was a cover-up that ensued. The Department of Health, under sharp criticism, put out a defiant report that said this did no damage, essentially, right? We did everything right. We months later, discover that they withheld certain information in that July 2020 report. The big thing was the numbers that were being suppressed. they were only counting nursing home deaths that occurred in the nursing homes, not the nursing home residents that contracted the virus from the spread in the nursing home that died in the hospital. In August, the Department of Justice said they were going to do an inquiry from their civil division. It's getting announced around that time that the governor's going to do a book. He's being lauded all over the place. President Trump, quite frankly, is giving us resources. He's giving us the Army Corps of Engineers. He's giving us the USNS Comfort, the Javits Center, the Westchester County Center, which, by the way, was never even opened and utilized. It was never activated in Westchester. And Michael, I represent Westchester, so that's personal for me. And then you're going into this book deal. There's issues with law firms buying large quantities of these books, which is a backdoor way of getting some sort of influence with the governor's office. We now know that he got a $5.1 million book deal.
Wow.
Never made that much in profits, but that's how much he got. And we're fooling ourselves if we're thinking that the narrative didn't help him. Him being lauded by the media didn't help him get that $5.1 million book deal. This governor suppressed that COVID-19 mortality information. And it wasn't until the Attorney General's report in January of 2021 that validated what I was saying for months, that he was underreporting those numbers, which kept the snowball going. It kept on growing and growing. December before 2021, Michael, a lady named Lindsay Boylan came out and made the first real public sexual allegation of sexual harassment. It was completely dismissed. The media ignored it in large part. We now know why. Heads in very high influential people in the governor's administration leaked out her personnel files, trying to discredit her, victim shame her. And shortly after January, with the AG's report, a colleague of mine, he's very liberal, but we get along. We respect each other. Ron Kim was threatened directly. I think the word was used, destroy. The governor wanted to threaten to destroy me. And that inspired other victims like Charlotte Bennett and everybody else to speak up. And then apparently we got 11 victims of sexual harassment, or in some cases assault. There's now criminal complaints filed. More allegations have been filed. And it just became way too monumental, way too much for this governor to deny. And in the past several weeks, this, even President Biden called for him to resign. I watched Ben Shapiro on Bill Maher. And hey, when Bill Maher is telling you this guy's got to go, I think that's pretty telling. And he was defiant through it all. No real remorse. So at least New York can move forward, but we're not done. Resigning is not necessarily equate to accountability. We spend millions of dollars on this impeachment investigation. I want them to finish their investigation. I want their report and their recommendations to be public, because I want those families that lost loved ones for all these other issues that you cited outside of the sexual harassment. They deserve to know those answers. They deserve to know that their elected representatives in the legislature listen to them.
I totally agree. That was a great recap of just what happened during COVID. And I think this is what's important. Sure, the guy's going to resign. Why he's taking 2 weeks to resign, I'm not totally sure. Maybe we can talk about that in a second too. But he is going to resign, so he's probably not going to be impeached. But I agree with you. I think that investigation needs to be concluded, because he's being booted out for winking at his secretary, when in fact the far greater scandals are the thousands of elderly New Yorkers that were killed directly because of his policies and because of the cover-up that he was effecting during all of that time, because of the money he was taking, to say nothing of the other scandals. Now that Cuomo is out, that's all well and good. We can all celebrate it. But I don't want to get too excited, because the Democrats still have control of the state. And I strongly suspect the only reason that they're willing to pull their support from him right now is because they know that they're going to have another Democrat coming up. They're still going to be able to maintain control. We do have to take a very quick break, but we are going to have, Kevin, can you stick around? We got a little more time with you?
Sure.
Okay, excellent, because we are going to be back with one of the key players who has been fighting Cuomo tooth and nail and really should take a victory lap today, Kevin Byrne. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Ben Shapiro Show. I'm Michael Knowles filling in. You can catch me on the Michael Knowles Show podcast, available for free wherever you get your podcasts. On this wonderful, wonderful day, a terrific day for everyone whose name is not Andrew Cuomo. Especially a good day for my friend Kevin Byrne, New York State Assemblyman, who has been dogged in his pursuit of Andrew Cuomo, even when some of his friends, present company included, may have told him, I don't think it, he's too tough, he's going to stick around, you're not going to get him. Anyway, Kevin was right. Kevin is joining us right now. We've talked a lot about what happened and how Cuomo finally got to this spot where he's resigning. What I want to know is what happens now. So Kevin, Cuomo comes out, he says, in 2 weeks, I will officially no longer be the governor.
Yeah, that's what he said just about an hour or so ago. And I think some people are rightfully concerned by that measure. First of all, if I want someone with that type of executive power to resign, I want them gone immediately.
Yeah.
I don't want this man having my bills before him to sign. That's a tremendous amount of power. He could declare disaster again. And I was speaking with some folks offline before. The number, 14 days, is concerning to some folks because a lot of us remember hearing 15 days to slow the spread last year. So that's a measurement that rightfully concerns a lot of us.
That's a very good point because 15 days to slow the spread last year, whatever it was, 2 weeks, that became, 14, 15 months and still ongoing. So, yeah, I guess maybe Cuomo's actually extended his term by saying it's going to go on for 2 weeks. I mean, assuming that the guy really does leave within 2 weeks. And you do have to wonder, is he spending those 2 weeks to cover his tracks? Is he spending those 2 weeks? You know that the guy is not above a cover-up. He covered up the COVID deaths in the nursing homes from federal investigators. So what's going to happen in those 2 weeks, I don't know. But then what happens after that? It's not as though now Republicans run the state of New York. This is still a Democrat-run state.
Yeah, so his lieutenant governor, Kathy Hochul, will take over. She's been his lieutenant governor for a number of years. I think Bob Duffy was his first lieutenant governor. She kind of came onto the scene. She was a very popular county clerk up in Western New York, ran for Congress, won in a special election as a supposed moderate defending Medicare. And I think the governor put her in as lieutenant governor to shore up that part of the state. She's been a retail politician. I met her for a number of years. Polite, decent person. I'm sure she's much more liberal than we know and let on. Because I have this experience of, we've always heard, Kirsten Gillibrand, right? When she was in Congress, she was a gun-toting, moderate Democrat that had kept a gun under her pillow. And now look at what she is now. So I'm not sure that Kathy Hochul is that same supposed centrist that she was all those years ago, but I would say still an improvement from Governor Cuomo. So I think that's a positive step. I will tell you that there's going to be Democrats clawing for that position. There was already polls released the other day citing Sean Patrick Maloney.
Just to let the audience in here too, Sean Patrick Maloney, now a very prominent Democrat. I think he's the head of the House's Democrat campaign committee. And Kevin, you and I have a little bit of a closer relationship to him. We were working on campaigns the first time that this guy ran and got his House seat. Pretty slippery, slimy fella, good politician. You got to give him credit where credit's due. But he's another rising Democrat in New York, and there are a bunch of these other guys.
And Letitia James is the obvious name because some folks questioned if there was political motive.
Letitia James is the Attorney General of New York who was behind this report that got Cuomo ousted.
Correct, which Cuomo, by the way, and his attorneys criticized her very vocally and aggressively. Kind of ironic because when he was the attorney general, he did the exact same thing to Spitzer. So it's there's a little bit of you do the same thing, Andrew, but it doesn't make it wrong what she was doing. I think I read that report, all 180 something pages of it. I think there were some very serious things in there. I mean, it did mention the vaccines and Larry Schwartz calling Democrat county executives testing their political loyalty and made clear that was inappropriate. That somehow found its way in there because he was testing and asking about their loyalty because of the sexual harassment allegation. So that's how that bridged together. And there's the very concerning incident with the New York State Trooper where they actually changed the hiring requirements so they could bring on this female trooper because the governor wanted her to be in the detail. And that was one of the more, I think, serious allegations. I'm not trying to diminish any of them, but that was one of the more serious in that report. And then, of course, I think the impeachment investigation will list a lot of other things, like we already mentioned, the COVID-19 cover-up, et cetera.
Well, Kevin, I do want to touch on that a little, because I have been, the only thing that I'm crestfallen about here is that I think there are much more serious scandals that Cuomo should have been ousted over beyond sexual harassment charges. And so I've sort of jokingly said that, the guy kills thousands of senior citizens, it's no big deal, but he winks at his secretary and he gets ousted. But actually, to your point, some of these allegations are a little bit more than just winking at your secretary. And could you go into a little bit this state trooper charge?
Sure. Well, there's two. There's that executive assistant number one that's been named, and I think she did a public interview, I think Monday, on one of the major news networks, but also a New York State trooper, which was not named, which said that he groped her, and touched her and sexually harassed her. And there's corroborating witnesses and support in the Attorney General's report. This was a New York State trooper that was already in the New York State Police, but after meeting the governor, they changed the rules, got her on board. He says it was because he wanted to diversify the New York State Police and get more female presence. Sure, but then you groom her and harass her. It kind of makes it clear that wasn't his intent. And I think that is more damning. It was a workplace issue, and I agree with you, Michael. The other corruption scandals I think are very serious. I talk to folks like, well, why aren't we hearing about the seniors? And I'm like, hey, I've been very vocal on that from the very beginning.
No, I think you're absolutely right about that. And I think you're right on the political point, which is take the victory when you can get it. Sure, there's more work to be done. As far as I can tell, he hasn't even accepted responsibility. He's still basically denying everything, right?
Other than he said if he offended people by hugging them or kissing them or saying "Ciao Bella," that's just like he's old-fashioned. But he's denied everything else. I mean, if you go back, there's a New York Post story, Michael. This is actually a really good one. With Charlotte Bennett was one of the accusers that worked for him, and it's in the AG's report where he called her and he started singing "Do You Love Me," right? That song "Do You Love Me" by the Contours, and that was in there. And when he was questioned by the Attorney General's office, he said, "Oh, I don't know that. That never happened. I don't even know who sings that." Well, then an audio recording is published from Charlotte Bennett to the New York Post where he actually is singing it. And I mean, you can get the clip. And then he even says, "Do you know who sings that? It's the Contours. It's even before my time." I mean, this guy just demonstrably lied to the Attorney General's office.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if he's lying about that, I mean, imagine what else he's being dishonest
and what else
about.
could come out, too, because there is, as you say, there's so much more to be done. Hopefully this impeachment investigation, hopefully there's more accountability. Hopefully this guy can never run for president, which he's been trying to do since he was about 2 years old. All of that in due time. Kevin Byrne, you deserve to take a victory lap. You were absolutely right. Congratulations. Thank you for joining. See you next time. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Ben Shapiro Show.